When Cleon the Seventh became day, he asked the stars for strength, wisdom, and fortitude. An advisor handed him all three.
I knew you had it. Strength,
Wisdom, fortitude. Gods! What is that?
The gods can't help you. That burn comes straight from hell.
I will not have my world continue without me.
You, me, Selden's big prediction.
The Empire will fall.
The Age of Darkness Harry predicted gets over.
Order will vanish.
The end of the dynasty, he said. And what comes after? Darkness. Well, if the robe fits. I'm a little brother who will never bother me.
What are you doing?
Well, I'm not conciliating. I can tell you that much.
Another little brother night.
Look who finally took an interest.
Another little brother.
I'll delay your ascension. I'll spare you.
Too late for that.
Another little brother. Selden had a backup plan too. I prefer mine. This is my vernacular. You all owe me.
And you pay me back by feeding Trantor to a fucking pirate? Is there even a pretense of negotiation? Selden folded up his pointy little tent and ran away. He was not consequential. He left me no option but to blow up the clock. I am the monster you raised. This innocent child is Empire. She could have set us free! Oh, is that what your dealer told you, that drunk fuck culty bed warmer? You cannot give up the men called Empire to save Empire. We are the same!
All my little brothers who will never get up. Rain.
Take the warning. Don't fuck with Empire.
Psychohistory was invented to help prepare humanity for the fall of the Empire, an era best described by General Bel Rios.
Let me tell you what it looks like if Empire falls. I've seen regions of space that have fallen into lawlessness. The weak are objects. The rapists are kings. The poor are slaves. Life is nothing but emptiness, pain.
And while in the beginning of the story, the Empire's continuation was something most fans wanted, that has changed with Season 3. Now that the Empire has officially fallen to darkness. Hello Foundation fans, fellow Mudbeards, and anyone who's just going to be biding their time until eventually Season 4 can come out. In this video, I wanted to go ahead and break down some of the thoughts and theories I have for the predictions going forward in Season 4 of the series. We'll be breaking down why Brother Dusk was so awesome this season, the enemies he's made, and by the end reveal a connection to both Kalle and potentially Cleon the First, and his hidden plans since he reprogrammed Demerzel. As well as touch on why I think they decided to use Lee Pace's voice for that robot next to Kalle. But first, let's go ahead and give our proper shoutouts to Terrence Mann. Terrence Mann, who plays not only Cleon the First, but Brother Dusk every single season, really brought home the Cleon name this season. I loved how the narrative toyed with the idea of his morals. At first being very subtle with showing his kindness and some of his tyranny, leaving the audience to have some faith that he'll turn up good at the end, or be a victim of the Ascension. But then, even as the veil dropped and we saw more sides of his darker half, you still have these moments where Dusk would do something horrible and look like he somewhat regrets it afterwards. Seriously enjoyed the way he jumbled between an angry and prideful emperor to a sad and desperate old man. And while in previous seasons, Dusk was always a well-crafted character, I'd say this is definitely the best iteration. Seeing him tip between nice and dignified, and vengeful and filled with wrath, made his character so compelling to watch. His pleading to so many characters to just allow him the right to exist, and the coldness in response that most of these characters have towards him, really did amplify these lines he said to Demerzel before their big moment.
You left me no option but to blow up the clock.
You are wrong. I have no options. You always do.
I am the monster you raised.
And again, like I said before, while in the beginning his moments of kindness can be seen as genuine, we see towards the end how most of those moments are just a step towards getting something he wants. But what I enjoy is his right and fight to sort of exist could also accompany the idea that he really just wants power. Brother Dude had proven to Dusk earlier in the season that it is possible to actually escape the Imperial site. And Brother Dusk himself was already able to smuggle the creation of the Novacula from Demerzel being able to notice. Which means Dusk had every reason to believe that he himself could have escaped and journeyed into the stars.
What a life that must be, though. Sleeping among the stars. No one to answer to. Living and dying on your own terms.
And I think this makes his desperation and grip towards power and living a little bit longer, coupled with the genetic decline and the idea of being a clone altogether, really amplify his desire to live longer and cling to power that much more than in another galactic series, I'd argue, being Star Wars. There are obvious similarities between Star Wars Emperor Palpatine and Foundation's Emperor Darkness. The only difference being the blatantly obvious narrative attention to these characters, and how they got to the point that they did. And I believe Foundation takes the cake when it comes to character building. As Star Wars, even with its prequels meant to establish more of the origins of some of these characters, I'd argue didn't do its Emperor justice, at least not as much so as Foundation did. And if the argument is,
while the Empire is a storyline in Foundation versus in Star Wars, it focuses on the rebels.
My counter-argument would be Foundation not only tackles the Imperial storyline, but also the quote-unquote rebels or the Foundation. Not only that, but it shows different characters representing the Foundation, and subsections of the Foundation that work against each other, with a whole second Foundation to worry about, and different characters representing them. This coupled with the fact that they're not building up one Emperor, but two other Emperors with completely different moral scalings. And if the next argument is time, I'd argue in that entire series of films there was definitely enough time to focus on narrative character building rather than, I don't know, maybe someone like Jar Jar Binks.
What is that?
But times are different, mediums have changed, and Foundation was kind of the grandfather of sci-fi fantasy in regards to the books. And while I'm not referencing the Star Wars books in any way here, I will stop talking about Star Wars because now we gotta focus on the evil galactic empire that's been created in Foundation. And yeah, you could argue the Empire was always this big evil galactic power that needed to be stopped in the series, but there's a counter argument that the Empire wasn't necessarily always the bad guy, and could be easily seen as well as a victim of this grand plan that seems to be put in place for all these characters and humanity altogether. By that I mean, throughout the series, we've seen how necessary sacrifices have to be made so that some sort of direction can be taken for humanity to grasp. Who's to say this galactic rule and entering of darkness isn't all a part of the plan, as referenced in the season finale when we got a glimpse of Kalle, but I'll get more into her character a little bit later in the video. And another reason why I really think this is all part of the plan is because by the end of season 3, it seems Empire won. They're still around, and they've killed off all the good characters. I think when you look at where their position is at in the galaxy, you'll see that Empire's kinda screwed. They've won a brief moment of victory in a small battle, but in regards to the war, everything's about to crumble around them. Not only has Empire lost its ability to instantly travel across space, lost its Imperial fleet, or at least 99% of it, lost the trust of almost anybody on the Outer Reach considering they left them long ago, if they weren't already absorbed by Foundation, lost the trust of anyone in the Middle Band with Dawn's blundering of the enclosure of Calgan, lost anyone affiliated with the Galactic Council, which is assumedly accumulated of all the galactic powers, lost any chance of working with any powerful houses as they took down one of the most powerful of houses in Cloud Dominion, but also may have directly started a holy war. With the Maiden being destroyed and the history of Luminism and the struggles that they went through in creating a sort of home for their religion there, if you want to hear about more, check out my religions video, you can very much assume that Luminism will return in a very big way. And while some that are more okay with the cycle of rebirth may be fine with what happened, there is certainly going to be a faction of Luminism, considering how wide-reaching its religion was, that are going to be coming for Empire. But let's also cut back to the potential of Cloud Dominion's return. Well, we saw what was mostly Cloud Dominion being destroyed. There is still the potential offspring of Sereth and Dawn from Season 2, who could return as sort of a side character or external player who is building up power in some way and is ready to fight back against the dwindling Empire. But I personally believe that potentially the Sereth and Dawn offspring could be more related to the Mule storyline, which I'll get into in another video. Either way, let's look at some of Brother Dusk's more up-close and personal enemies. You have Brother Dusk and hopefully his upcoming confrontation with Song, or at the very least the members of Mycogen. I would love if Yutha Wong Loi Sing could come back and reprise her role as Song. We've seen built-up tension between her character and the character of Brother Dusk, and while she's remained humble and dignified with what's happened to both Demerzel and Brother Dude, I think she would be the perfect character to avenge their deaths, or at least try to. But she should not be the one to end Dusk, and there's very few other characters who really have that right. We'll go ahead and throw both the Gale and the Mule out of the mix, even though both of them have their own bone to pick with Empire. No, we'll keep the orbit a little bit close and touch on Quint. There's bound to be another confrontation between both Brother Darkness and Quint. Quint, who will be hiding with the Second Foundation and likely only leaving just to either try to reach out to Dusk one more time or play her own political manipulative game. There's even a potential chance that Second Foundation will make a play and only hold off because Quint wants to try to reach out to Brother Darkness one last time, as a friend. But I don't think Quint will be the one to eventually stop the Empire. I think potentially Quint and her passing will represent the dying of Brother Darkness's morals. Either way, like with Song, I really hope Cherry Jones returns to reprise her role as Quint, because her and Terrence Mann make a really good pair on screen. But that leads to potentially the most likely candidate, that being Brother Dawn. Yes, Brother Dawn, the only one Brother Darkness for a while really thought was worthy to lead Empire. But they both definitely have some catching up to do, with Dawn potentially needing to explain what he did in regards to getting involved with the Second Foundation and getting manipulated by Gale, and Dusk needing to explain the billions of lives he stole. They had such a heartwarming relationship in the third season, with Dusk showing up to help robe Dawn when Brother Dude didn't make it, and with how much of a mentor Brother Darkness really was to him. I think there's reason to believe that the only reason Brother Darkness really started to only look out for himself was because of the presumed betrayal of Brother Dawn. But I have my own tiny theory why in their confrontation it might end up with Dawn being the one to go. As much as I would like to see Dawn and Cassian Bolton survive the season, and potentially come back as another character in the future of the series, I do think in some way they're going to utilize that message that Dawn had left for Brother Darkness, and potentially it's going to be something Brother Darkness listens to before he eventually passes away himself.
I'm trying to do something worthwhile. Something consequential. Be at peace, Brother Dusk, and I pray I see you again, wherever we tyrants spend eternity.
But how will Empire and Trantor exactly fall? Honestly, I think it's been pretty heavily hinted at. I just don't know how exactly the pieces will play out to get us there. But somehow, we're eventually going to reach a battlefield in the Sack of Trantor. This battle can take place at literally any time, considering the Mule has access to whisper ships, which, if you've seen in Season 2, can basically jump wherever they want, and even just jumping without utilizing any weapons causes a bit of havoc. So with tensions high and complete and utter destruction of Trantor on a very thin edge, at some point, after several attempts to probably escape this potential fate, the Sack of Trantor will go down, the Mule or Beta will invade, Second Foundation will put up some sort of a defense at the university, either on purpose in preparing, or by accident in being found by the Mule, and Gale will get caught up in the mix of all this. And during all the chaos, she'll be shocked to see the return of the Mule we've seen in Season 3. How and why would he return? Well, you'll have to stay tuned for my Mule/Gale predictions video. But where will Brother Dusk be? Well, I think during his dwindling of control and power, there will be something that's going on in the palace that he has no idea about. This will be the resurrection of Demerzel, or maybe a different robot belonging to the school from Mycogen. Either way, I could see the Zephyr from Luminism making a return and getting manipulated, or even trying to help Demerzel and gain her freedom, or potentially even Kalle getting more involved in the story now that Demerzel has reached out through the school. Kalle, in her return, could manipulate Dusk in his genetic decline. We've already seen in Season 3 little hints of it, and I think throughout Season 4, he's gonna continue to go through the genetic drift and become desperate, just like Harry Seldon, to try and gain a new body. And potentially in the creation of this new body, it will turn out to be a trick and actually a body for Demerzel. And with nothing else left to lose, I believe in some moment, either up in the stars or down on Trantor, more likely the latter, Dusk is going to use the Novacula to take the entire planet out. Probably just being a bitter loser in the end and not wanting to go down without a bang. Potentially listening to Don's tape one last time before he goes. But what other secrets could be revealed within the season that we haven't quite seen yet? I believe that with Kalle's potential return, we'll also get some more explanation for that robot figure we saw standing next to her. And I think there's a very obvious narrative implication for why he also has Lee Pace's voice. I think potentially in Season 4, it could be revealed that Cleon the First, when he went out into the stars to find a way to free Demerzel in the way that he wanted, and he found the reprogramming chip, there's very strong potential that he had found said chip at the moon base Kalle was on. But maybe his involvement with Kalle didn't end there. Maybe part of the reason the genetic dynasty was created was because it was a much more efficient way to guide humanity towards the certain direction Kalle, or whatever faction she represents, in whatever destiny they thought humanity needed to go. There's even a chance that Cleon the First isn't even dead, mayhaps uploading his consciousness into this robot figure we see. Meaning, just like with Harry Seldon, he left a backup. We already know that he left a backup in the First's memory that the Cleons will go to seek advice. Now, what if I told you that this system of memories that seem to respond perfectly to every question they have was in fact just a direct communication line to the Lee Pace robot we saw on the moon? Him only giving advice that would keep the genetic dynasty on the path they needed to go on. This would bring to question some of his conversation with Demerzel when they were building the Star Bridge. But if you look at it with the context that Cleon the First is about to either head off into space towards the moon, or even just upload his consciousness into digital form or a robot, then this scene still makes sense because he won't be there with Demerzel. Why would Cleon the First do this? Well, it's possible he was looking for a role to play. In Season 2, we found out he didn't want to be Empire. And every iteration of Cleon since then has had a moment where they also don't want to be in there. What's a better role in history than that of a genetic ruler in a galactic empire? I'd say someone ruling from behind the scenes in puppeteering this genetic dynasty, still remaining a part of the story and controlling the pieces, but not risking too much of themselves. We already know Cleons seek a natural longevity to their name. And maybe this sentiment was in Cleon the First as well, and in a way, he really didn't. But either way, those are some of my thoughts and theories for the Imperial storyline coming in Season 4. If you're a fan of Foundation, keep an eye out for my Beta and Gale prediction side of the video. Or if you're a fan of the channel, keep an eye out for more Raised by Wolves coverage, Welcome to Derry, Fallout, and whatever else I feel like covering. Either way, thank you all for sticking with me for the season, appreciate the feedback, and remember that darkness is always followed by the dawn.